All right, welcome along to the latest edition of the Irish Rally Podcast. This week, I'm joined by Adam Hall from rallyinsight.com. Adam, great to have you on the show. I've been following your stuff quite closely, and always a very interesting read. It comes from a huge passion for motorsport, no doubt, and it's all wheels with you, even in the day job. So a great passion, but unfortunately, not too much to tick the box at the moment because we don't have any action.
Yeah, for sure, Calvin. Thanks very much for having me on here, and well done on your podcast. And yeah, it's been brilliant so far. So yeah, I hope you can keep going with it. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the next guest that you have planned. But yeah, for me, it's been a different year, I suppose, for rallying over here. So I'm looking forward to things hopefully getting going again, although it's hard to know when that will be.
From a content creating point of view, obviously we've had to rethink things a little bit, and this is both from a podcast point of view and obviously from putting out content on rallyinsight.com. So what have you found opportunistic during this time?
Uh, I guess looking back through the years, and yeah, trying to get in touch with people that you've probably heard of from back in the day, or whose work you followed, or yeah, just even listening to some of the podcasts out at the minute as well. It's been brilliant. So yeah, no, I've definitely the start of lockdown especially. I tried to get in touch with some guys for content, and yeah, hopefully I'll get that produced towards the end of the year and out there. But definitely there's some amazing stories in this country for rallying, and yeah, it's been nice hearing them, and yeah, for me, hopefully producing something for that as well will be good. So yeah, I guess I know it's definitely been a difficult time, but um, there has been some chances to do things a wee bit differently.
Yeah, there has indeed. We've definitely had to rethink things, both as I suppose people involved from content production and obviously competitors themselves. And we noticed obviously over the last month or so in particular that guys have been going to different sprint events, time trials, all across kind of things, and that's how they're kind of trying to fill the void at the moment, which is not ideal, but I guess it's the closest they're going to get at the moment.
Yeah, and it's good to see that people are just keen to get out there no matter what it is. I know I know if you had a business at the minute, or you're working away, it's definitely difficult times. But to see so many people still going out and competing on different things, even the guys who are going across the water as well, like there's definitely an appetite just to get back rallying. So I think that's definitely promising anyway.
Yeah, and like things were looking so good at the start of the year, and me and you would have spoken kind of off there about West Cork in particular and how that was shaping up at the time.
Yeah, I guess that's nearly the hardest thing to take for us following the sport. Just, and I know Galway maybe was struggling at the start, but they did well to get their rally pulled together, and then it was just a brilliant start to the Tarmac Championship, and with Alistair Fisher going so well, and seeing him take his first Tarmac win, that was definitely a special day there. And just having you had Donna Kelly back in the pace, even Marion Evans, he was back over and had a polo. He was looking good. Moffats were getting used to their new cars. It was all coming together, and then seeing the entry for West Cork, I think there wasn't too many people not excited about that. That definitely probably would have been the best rally since the circuit CRC days over here. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
and then
definitely.
obviously the decision had to be taken not to run it. And yeah, it was, I think the West Cork team did well seeing what was coming. Tough decision, but yeah, definitely one you couldn't argue with. It's just a pity how it all worked out. And yeah, to think what this year could have been. West Cork and then Easter stages, Killarney, Donegal. You could only imagine the entries and the weekends we could have had there. But yeah, I think looking forward, um, yeah, hopefully, yeah, I guess you can only hope that we'll maybe get something before the end of the year. It's hard to know, but I think there seems to be clubs still putting the work in to try and at least have a chance of something running. So yeah, hopefully some of those come off and we're in a better position at the start of next year. But yeah, it's just so hard to know at the minute.
Yeah, and crucially, I suppose, with those clubs that have lost their events this year, I would assume that, you know, the priority is to make sure that they can focus entirely on what the story is for next year and try put wherever they can in place to try and make events happen. Now, obviously, there's only a certain amount you can do, and you're a product of your environment, and that will ultimately dictate what does and doesn't happen. But
Yeah,
if you can put as much things as possible in place, then you stand a great chance. And no doubt clubs, I would assume, are probably, in that kind of information seeking stage where they can try and put together something within the parameters of what we're working with.
yeah. Even just from a general point, you can only do your best. So I know Wexford was probably the one event everyone was talking about, and yeah, those guys were definitely putting in the work to make something happen. So even knowing that had the country's regulations just been different at the time, they could have had something for us. So just knowing that if the work's done, and I think if teams are smart about how to organize things and again take a sensible common sense approach, and yeah, hopefully once um, regulations open up again or restrictions open, then we'll be in a position to return. But yeah, even even it's probably a good time for clubs to start working together and communicating with each other to figure out a way that as many can come back and bounce back from this.
Yeah,
Um,
and the Wexford thing in particular, like that was supposed to be this weekend. So
yeah,
yeah, like it's and it had been looking so good, and obviously it was just literally with the regulations at the time, the decision was obviously made or whatever, and yeah, that was obviously a tough one. And look, it was watered down somewhat in that the Welsh competitors and the UK competitors overseas in general weren't let across, and I know that was a handy one for the Welsh lads in particular, just come across into Rosslare, and they hadn't far to go to compete. It was cutting down
yeah,
road time and all that, like. So even without the Welsh guys, it still would have been nice to have something. And I know a lot of lads from up and down the country, even some big names, were kind of targeting that because obviously they had very little else to work with this year.
yeah, and I think as well, the the weekend before the phase four announcement or the whatever phase it turned out to be, the Motorsport Ireland or whatever sports um group allowed two people in a car again. So even then, it was looking good for them. I think that was uh, one concerning part for rallying, but for that rule to be lifted, again, I guess it's just what could have been, and definitely, I'm sure if the rally had ran, they would have got um, a fairly nice entry list for it, just with guys wanting to get out again. And I know, I know they had planned a fairly decent amount of road miles and number of stages considering the circumstances. So it was definitely going to be a very respectable rally, and it was a 2 day event as well. Like
Yeah,
it's not like it was just a 1 day event. So again, it's a pity, but definitely fair play to the club for putting in the effort, and I hope the work that they did can maybe be used later on in the year, or even um, I guess clubs maybe can can find out how they went about their plans, and yeah, just to try and understand how we can manage the situation at the minute and try and get something going again. But definitely it's a pity, but yeah, fair play to Wexford for the efforts they put in, and yeah, I know they had penciled in a date for later in October for a 1 day event. So I don't know what the situation is on that at the minute, but yeah, it's I know everything's so dependent on the stance taken by the government at the minute. So
Yeah,
it's a tricky
and
one.
it is indeed. Yeah, we're actually. I was trying to get Gary Bradley on there over the last couple of weeks, and between him having issues and between me having issues, we're both be under control. We couldn't go ahead with it, but we will have a chat with Gary obviously at some stage to see
Yeah,
what the jigs and the reels were, because he was obviously involved in the thick of it, and it would have been interesting just to get some sort of context on how clubs were approaching it, and obviously just to give some insight on the running of an event, and how difficult it is, how much work is involved for a lot of people out there who maybe don't understand that just maybe rock up and have a look and see what's happening on the day and assume that it kind of falls into place. And I know people aren't that naive, but just to get a real insight into what is involved, I suppose. But Adam, like just as a general rule before we move on from the events of COVID this year, are you in favor of seeing stuff as it stands, or do you think we're better off just drawing a line across it altogether?
uh, I think I think it's been long enough now for a line to be drawn. Um, Definitely we need to be encouraging safety and complying to rules, but yeah, seeing so many other things get back to normal again, I don't think we can afford to get left behind. And I think 1 year away is fine, but if it starts impacting next year and if championships start to be dropped again next year, that's when it gets scary for me. I think, um, yeah, it's rallying's a big thing in Ireland, but yeah, we need to be doing our best to promote the sport, try and get more people into the sport. I think when we look back to growing up, um, even with rallying in general and the WRC, I think of McRae and Richard Burns, all those guys to follow. It was hard not to grow up and um, miss rallying, or it was hard to avoid your local rally, or the stage that runs past your house, or your family friend that has a car and does a few events. I think all of those things have had a big impact on how big rallying is in this country. But if we start losing a couple of years where nothing's happening, um, yeah, I think it's a common sense approach again. Like if there's an opportunity to return, we need to be doing our best to get the sport going again. And I think yeah, you can only do your best, and you hope that everybody who's got a position in the sport or has an influence in some ways is doing their bit to um, try and get the sport going again. But definitely, I think the desire from a competitor's point of view is there now to get going again. You only have to see the people going. Yeah, there's guys away to Sport Rally last weekend. People going to the RC events. They're traveling huge miles just to get out. So uh, yeah, with plenty of other sports and activities going again, I think we need to be
Yeah,
doing
we've
our bit
seen
to get rallying going.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of our competitors, from all parts of Ireland, flocking overseas to try get some action. Like we mentioned on a weekly basis here, your of course your Mark Leans, your Moffats, obviously Breen and Devine,
Yeah,
Aaron Johnson is obviously with Oliver Solberg, and you spoke to Aaron recently, and Glendenning had him on the most recent Crunch and Gears podcast too.
Yeah,
But you see all these guys itching to get some sort of action, and they're all going across. And look, they're well within their right to do so. But like it's just not an ideal situation. But for those guys in particular, like they've kind of asserted themselves quite well in those events. Not like we won't talk about Breen Divine. We're always on about them, and they're
yeah,
obviously kind of a standard. Breen is operating at a different level. But we'll say for the guys, the Moffats and that, who can compete with Breen incidentally on the country,
yeah,
but are not kind of in those work strives. Like these guys are getting used to those sort of events, and they can only stand to them. But it's not replicating the out and out tarmac events, which are absolutely used to here. Like.
yeah. I think yeah, the Moffats and Kath and McCourt did really well over the weekend. And yeah, I think it's so good to see those guys just going over there right on the pace, and it's yeah, it was in Greystoke, which is it's very much sports proven ground. So to be even close to those guys pace, you can imagine the amount of test miles they have done up and down there. So yeah, it's look, we're definitely a country that punches above our weight in rallying terms, even in motorsport in general. The amount of success we've had over the years, and yeah, I think just the competition again that we have over here. I think sometimes we take it for granted the number of closed road events and forestry rallies that we have in a calendar year. Like it's crazy, and even the mileage that we have here on a rally. If you go look at some of the British Championship events and obviously the class that the British Championship is, if you go look at some of our national rounds, it's we're not far off, and it's definitely a different level in terms of where people are looking to go. But yeah, the strength and depth we have here, and the number of drivers we have constantly competing against each other, it's something special. So again, let's hope next year we can see that again. Hopefully we're past the worst of all this, and we can get back to normal next year. I think definitely we're all going to appreciate
Mm-hmm.
what we had before when we get back.
Definitely, yeah. And as you know, we kind of mentioned, we say the likes of Malcolm Wilson, or going back a bit further, a Dave Richards or whatever. If we had an Irish version of those guys, would we see more of our own getting these work strives, or is it a case where, like, something that struck me in particular listening to the Sprint podcast was when Niall McShea had, I think he had 1 million to offer to try get a drive with Ford in 2005. But
Yeah,
Roman Cresta was able to come with a few more bob, and he got the drive. But I can't quite ever get my head around this. Like, factory teams with huge finances are still. It sounds naive for me to say this now, but they're still taking into account what their own guy can bring in addition to
yeah,
their finances. Like, can you imagine a soccer player, for example, saying, "Oh look, give me the contract there and the 250 grand a week, and I'll bring 1 million myself and I'll give it
yeah.
to the club."
It's
It's just it's batshit crazy, really.
it's so it is sometimes when you sit down and think about it, you wonder how it all works. But yeah, it's you do wonder how drivers get paid, but they expect to bring a certain amount of money, and even Formula One's the same in many
Hmm.
ways. You have what Lewis Hamilton could be on 40, 50 million a year, and yet somebody a few places down the grid could be bringing that amount to get their drive. So
Stroll is a good example in
yeah,
this case. Yeah,
for
buying the
sure.
son in, and the son has a bit of talent and fairness now. Like, we won't take that in away, but Jesus, Daddy comes in with the big bucks and gets the drive for the young
Yeah,
lad. Like,
but yeah, I think rallying it's a tough industry to get your break, and I have to say fair play to Craig and Paul for getting their seat in Hyundai even this weekend. I know they're still obviously working to try and get their place full time, but for those guys to come from Ireland, and they have proved themselves for years and years. The groundwork that Craig done back in the WRC Academy and through the ERC and the different drives he had with Peugeot and even Citroen. Like, he's done endless amounts of hard work just to put himself in a position of drive with a manufacturer. So I don't know if that will ever change until we get more manufacturers and more seats. It's just so difficult. And yeah, if you were a team owner and you had two guys with similar results and one could bring a few million and the other couldn't, like, yeah, it sort of stands the sense who you would pick,
Yeah,
just to
and
get through a year. But
it
it's hard.
still seems, Adam, that like just say obviously Niall McShea always had more talent than Roman Cresta or whatever. But they side with the guy that has a few bob, even if he's that bit inferior to the guy that doesn't.
Yeah, I
No,
think
it's mad. It's a mad sport, like.
in that case as well, like it yeah, I think looking back, decision might have been made differently, but again, that's hindsight. And I think Malcolm has had endless amount of decisions to make in terms of drivers he's had to take and those he couldn't. But yeah, I think M Sports a unique team as well with how they run it day to day. It's obviously different to a Hyundai or a Toyota at the minute. But definitely, I think the only solution is trying to get a format of the sport at the highest level that encourages more manufacturers. Or yeah, it's something I was thinking about at the start of the year, just with it's there's nearly two ways now the sport can go in the future, whether it goes tries to chase the electric future, and I know they're bringing in the hybrid cars, which I don't really know how much of an impact that'll have. They're talking about a power boost, so yeah, what level of detail that hybrid system is going to be and how relevant that'll be to a normal car, it's hard to know. But yeah, I think we've lost a wee bit of the the early 2000s or the 90s when you saw a World Rally car, and yeah, it was something you wanted to go and buy. You
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
you can't look at the Yaris now. That Toyota Yaris looks nothing like the Yaris you see on a road. It's
yeah,
even that attraction from a manufacturer, you have to question from seeing a star rally driver and yeah, a fan going to buy that car in the showroom. I think that's long gone now. I don't.
yeah. And someone mentioned that, I can't remember where I was listening to that lately on what podcast it might have been, but they mentioned that exact fact where back obviously in the 2000s or whatever, you saw Subaru. Jesus, everyone wanted a Subaru, and they were very attractive, or
Yeah,
something along those lines. I mean, for all the will in the world, and I don't mean to be taken away from any manufacturer here, but I don't know if the same the same graws there said to buy a Yaris as there would be obviously to buy a Subaru.
yeah,
Do like, and that's an important thing as well, because when you saw the Subaru, you'd be thinking, oh, what rally car. Now when you see a Yaris, I doubt anyone is thinking, what rally car. Do you know what
and
I
it
mean?
clearly worked because you think back 10, 15, 20 years ago, there was a crazy amount of impresses
Mm.
driving about. Like, it was obvious. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's something that if the WRC wants more manufacturers, that they're not gonna appear from nowhere. I think something has to be done to encourage it. And even there's so much talk about um, costs at the minute and how much current World Rally car costs and whether you go back to R5 and all of this. But again, if you go back to R5 and have say three or four manufacturers and yeah another 20 privateers, um a privateer in an R5 against a manufacturer on R5, it's still going to be different levels. It's
Hmm.
it's definitely a tough one. I think in general we need to try and find a way of attracting more teams, and then that way, there's more of a realistic ladder for young drivers to say, oh, there's 16 seats available where I will get paid eventually, and then at least if they do invest money over a period of time, there's a likely return on that. Whereas at the minute, it's definitely a difficult proposition.
It is indeed. So let's talk about Rally Estonia, which is obviously on the horizon here. And we mentioned obviously Craig Breen and Paul getting the drive here with Hyundai. This is huge for them because obviously they're trying to make that statement and try to get a more, a more permanent drive. Now, they've done well in the past in terms of trying to make that happen. They still obviously haven't been given the rubber to green, but a big result here will certainly do them no harm and may go a long way in possibly getting more runs in the future rather than the come day go day sort of thing that's going on with them the past couple of years,
Yeah, so they've got their drive in Estonia this weekend, and then the next event in Turkey, Lobes coming in on that third seat. So yeah, I think Craig and Paul are, even the R5 drives that they've had in the RC, they never put a foot wrong. So yeah, I think if they can go and have a nice smooth weekend, show their pace on a few occasions, and get some points with Hyundai, they're definitely, with Tanak and Nivella's teammates, they're both going for the driver's title. So um yeah, I think if Craig can show some good pace, but again, just work as part of the team, which they're so comfortable doing now. I think that's what they'll be needing to do for hopefully getting a seat in the future. They seem to have a good relationship with Adamo now at Hyundai, and I think they're very well settled in that team. So I think long term it's looking good for them. It's just keeping the pace there and trying to get a good result. But I think this weekend's going to be very tricky to get into the podium. If they can do it, it'll be brilliant. And if they do come away here with a really good result, it's going to be very impressive because they're up against Tanak, their teammate. It's his home round, and again, it's a fast gravel event. Everyone's sort of like, or yeah, it's a likeness with Finland. So again, Toyotas are going to be strong there. So yeah, it could be a tough weekend. But if Craig and Paul do well, I think it's gonna do them no harm at all. But definitely they've had a good few months in the rallies that they've done. So I think yeah, if they keep going in the right direction, things are looking promising for them.
Yeah, indeed. And obviously, as you mentioned, Tannick's home event is going to be a tall order there to try and get the better of that guy. You mentioned obviously the fact that there is similarities to Finland, and Craig has obviously finished on the podium there over the last
Yeah,
4 or 5 years. So I mean, it's an event that he'll definitely take by the scruff of the neck.
I think
He's obviously coming in as the third driver, but he won't be found wanting.
no, and for Hyundai to put him in ahead of Loeb and Sordo, like it's no mean feat to get a seat ahead of those two guys. So definitely, he's in a good position now, and I think there's 3 rounds after this: Turkey, Italy, and Belgium or Yip. So I think Craig will be in a nice place to get another run out before the end of the year. I think in Yip he's obviously the reigning winner there. He won last year, so I think there's a nice chance he'll be out there, and yeah, that's maybe again a round that'll suit him. But yeah, I think this weekend's going to be interesting. Um, with Tanak, yeah, I think with the Toyotas probably having a wee bit of an advantage. But again, Tanak being the man to beat driving wise, it could be interesting, even with Robin Perez there, and Ogier as teammate. Ogier is obviously a nice lead in the championship. So I think those three will be the people to watch: Tanak, Robin Para, and Ogier.
Yeah, for sure. Further down the leaderboard then, and further down categories, I suppose, is Aaron Johnson, who's been doing exceptionally well alongside Oliver Solberg, and he's a guy you spoke to recently, and obviously Kevin Lynn, and he had him on the podcast recently too. A very interesting guy by all accounts, and it's kind of a partnership that would take a bit of thinking without knowing the story initially. You have an
Yeah,
Irish guy with a Swedish legend and a son of a Swedish legend here.
yeah. I think Aaron told me a while ago about the tie up there. So I think it's thanks to Chris Patterson and obviously his links with Petter. And yeah, Aaron explained it really well on Kevin's podcast, Crunching Gears. So yeah, it's so good to see him in that position. And yeah, Aaron and Oliver seem to work really well. And yeah, some of their onboard footage from Rome and Leopaya. It's just the proofs in the pudding there. Like you can't get much better than that in terms of detail and the delivery of the pace notes. So Aaron's obviously doing a really good job, and yeah, he's young for well, they're both young guys, and they have a brilliant opportunity. Obviously, the results they keep getting is way above their own expectations. The same anytime I talk to them, they're always reiterating that they're only out there to sort of learn events this year. You know, they're only really starting to do world championship events this year. It's all about gaining experience, but every time they say that, they seem to go and set the pace. And yeah, again, the one in Leopaya beat a whole list of quality drivers. So that's those two have got an exciting future, definitely future WRC stars. So yeah, it's brilliant that Aaron's in that position, and he deserves to as well. If you go and look at the number of events he's done over the past years, you know he's definitely put the effort in, and he's got his rewards. So um, hopefully them two can continue on the way they're going at the minute, and yeah, it's brilliant to see.
Absolutely, yeah. And think I kind of said that Oliver Solberg was a Swedish legend. I meant Peder, of course, but Oliver, no doubt,
Yeah,
one day will become a Swedish legend, and hopefully Johnson alongside him. It'd be fantastic. So, Adam, just we've covered a lot of ground here so far, but I know there's a bit of a book in the pipeline. I don't know if you're at liberty to kind of talk about the ins and outs of that, but that's obviously, I think that's been kept, been keeping you busy, I should say, during the lockdown as well, and you're hoping to have something out, I think, in the next couple of months. Is that right?
yeah. So again, last year I suppose was yeah. I think if I explain myself properly, I graduated from uni last summer. So on the years before that, exam season is really peak rally season as well, with April and May. So I could never really cover things properly over the past few years. And then come September last year, sort of thought it would be just a nice chance to add value to Irish rallying at the minute. And I think initially it was really going to be a photo book nearly, with just some of the best photos from throughout the year. You know, when you see guys pictures from events like Killarney, it's you don't get that anywhere else. Some of the scenery and the cars and the names that float about the stages in Ireland's incredible. So I thought it would be nice to capture that. And yeah, the idea is sort of gained a wee bit of momentum. And we got the book out just before Christmas last year. So again, just when I have the chance, I have to say a big thanks to everyone who helped me out. I didn't really know what way it was going to go. It was more a case of I had a notion and I wanted to see what it would look like, and then with everyone who helped me out, people who wrote stuff for me, those who supplied photos, it's yeah, some of the people we have in this sport in this country, you just don't get any better. So um, yeah, getting getting enough interest to run a decent print batch, and yeah, getting them out before Christmas last year was brilliant. So yeah, this year I've had a bit more time to think about it, and yeah, I've less events this year, obviously, but yeah, I've spoke to some um, interesting people over lockdown, and we'll definitely have some nice features and hopefully some more really good photos in the book this year. So I haven't started pulling the content together yet, but yeah, I've done a bit of research. I've interviewed a few folk already, so no, I'm looking forward to starting that again soon. And yeah, it'll hopefully, all being well, have that going into print at the start of December again this year.
Hashtag watch this space.
Yeah, I know.
Adam, that's brilliant. Listen, thanks for coming on the Irish Rally podcast. It's great to have you on. And look, we'll chat again in the near future, no doubt.
No problem at all, Kevin. Thanks for having me on, and again, well done for the effort that you're putting in here. And yeah, the quality of this podcast is brilliant. So I'm really looking forward to seeing where it can go, especially when hopefully we get some more rallies in this country in the near future.
That's it. But hopefully, that was kind of half the idea behind any that we get stuff out there when events do get back on. But look, in the meantime, it's good to be getting these sort of stories from different people involved, and no doubt we'll explore different avenues as well. Adam Hall from rallyinsight.com, thanks a million. And again, just a quick word to all the listeners out there. If you are a listener on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, don't be afraid of those 5 stars. It's really helping getting us up the leaderboard. And if anyone is interested in any sponsorship opportunities, you can contact us on any of the social media platforms or get us at Irish Rally Podcast at gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again soon.